When it comes close to Valentine's Day, I don't necessarily go to a lot of work, but if my nieces or nephew are gonna be around, I'm gonna make these melt-in-your-mouth sugar cookies. They're really simple, they are fun to put together. You roll them out, you cut them, you put a delicious, just homey frosting on them, and you have a delicious cookie. Now, you don't have to have these for Valentine's, but they're perfect if you wanna make one for that. So we're gonna start with some butter, because what good recipe does not start with butter? And I like to have mine at room temperature so it creams better. We're gonna put the sugar in, and this is pretty much one of those just classic creaming the sugar with the butter, which means we're gonna be aerating, adding air in with it, and actually kind of dissolving that sugar into the butter. We've been creaming the butter and sugar, and you actually wanna take a few minutes to do this because you want it to actually combine well and be lighter and fluffy. See how it's actually working together as one now? That's important. So when a recipe says cream and put it together till it's light and fluffy, that actually takes some time. So follow that instruction, it's important. So now with the mixer running on low, we're gonna add 1 egg at a time because we want it to work into the dough evenly. So it just helps it be more even if you're gonna do it one at a time. So you're gonna crack it on the counter, put it right in, and yes, I'm living on the edge, thinking I'm not gonna get shell in there. If you're worried, crack it into a small bowl. I'm gonna turn it up just a little bit so it mixes in between. I just mixed the second egg in, so it's all combined. Every so often, I do think scraping the bowl is important too, especially on a bigger mixer. You have to make sure that it's not getting stuck in that divot in the bottom. You wanna make sure it's all evenly mixing, and once you know it is, see how quick that was? Just take the time to do it, then you'll have even cookies. Now we're gonna add in some Greek yogurt. So this is gonna help tenderize the cookies, gonna give them really good flavor, and it just really helps create a unique melt-in-your-mouth cookie, and I think it's really essential too. Now, if you wouldn't have Greek yogurt on hand, which I always do, but you could use sour cream instead too. It will do a lot of the same things, and it will still add that great kind of fat and richness, but yet make it really tender. And that's the important part. So we're gonna put that right in, mix that up, and then start with the dry ingredients. The Greek yogurt's all mixed in. We're gonna scrape it again. Again, just doing this as you go, and just make sure everything is mixed well, because you know what? If you don't do this, and sometimes you bake cookies and all at once you have one that does something really weird or it looks different, it's probably because you didn't scrape the bowl, and so the ingredients weren't evenly mixed. Yeah, there's a reason people say to do this. So I scraped it, and now we can move on. I of course forgot, true Caleb fashion, to add the vanilla with the wet, so we're just gonna put some in right now before we do the dry. Vanilla. It's the flavoring here. It's gonna mix with the butter. It's gonna create that umptious cookie that you want. So now we're gonna put in the flour. And I always, when I'm doing flour, you know, a lot of old recipes would say to sift. A lot of our flours today don't need to do that, but scooping them and leveling them off is kind of an important step, because what that does is, one, it helps aerate your flour somewhat. But when you just go in with your scoop into your flour, you pack it in and you end up adding way too much flour. So going like this and scooping it into your measuring cup helps to make sure that you don't. So we're gonna add in the flour, just all the dry ingredients here at once. A little bit of salt, because salt balances out the flavors, it brings out the correct flavors, and it's needed. Then we're gonna add some baking soda and baking powder. Now I label them, so I always have to look which one I'm doing. So we'll do the baking soda first, and then some baking powder. So soda helps brown a cookie, powder helps rise a cookie, and they kind of can work together, and it just depends on the ingredients in there, but they are both important depending on what recipe you're doing. So we're gonna put in just the rest of that, and now we're gonna mix it on low, and then we'll turn it up to make sure it's well combined. I'm just cleaning off the beater because I make sure to get every little bit off the beater. I hate when you see it left on there. That's cookie. You don't wanna leave it on there. So what I have here is some plastic wrap on the counter. This dough at first is really sticky. So to think of rolling them out or cutting them out or anything at the moment, it would not be good. So what we have to do is put it in some plastic wrap, which will just make it easier to transport, and then put it into the fridge for just a couple hours until it firms up. Because there's some butter in here, which once it's solidified, once it's hard to get in from the fridge, will actually firm up, and you'll be able then to roll it out much easier. Because at the moment you're gonna see and say, Caleb, that is not going to roll out. But you can see what a beautiful dough it really is. And if you were here, you would smell the butter in it. So that's why when I say use good ingredients, you know, the better butter you use, the better any ingredient is that's gonna have flavor is gonna just add to the overall flavor of what you're making. That's why I always say and think that's important. Same with vanilla, and that's why I make my own vanilla or anything. It's just, you might as well. Okay, we have it all in there. I know. My mom and grandma just made me have to get everything off, so now I do too. And now I'm just going to make sure, kind of just push it together to make sure it's kind of in a ball or a shape. And again, don't worry about the looks now, because once we take it then out of the fridge, then we'll be able to press it into a nice disc, roll it nicely. But you can see once it's in here, look at that. We now have a nice dough. I'm gonna put this in the fridge. We're gonna let it chill for a few hours until it's firm. We're gonna roll it out. We're gonna make cookies. Happy Valentine's Day, right? The dough chilled, and you can see it doesn't look too much different, but it's just not as tacky. So you can work with it a little bit easier. Now we're still, I mean, it's a softer dough, and that's what makes these cookies extra good and kind of melt in your mouth. So we still want to definitely take some flour and just kind of shake it over, because it will stick to the counter. Even, don't you think you can get around that, because it will. So we're gonna put the dough out. We're gonna put a little bit of flour on top too. Look at that. Instantly it's easier to work with. Flour is an amazing thing. And I will even, on my wood, put a little bit of flour on that. And then we're just gonna start rolling. This is when the dough looks a lot, to me, more palatable, more beautiful. You start, look at that. Look what you're getting, a beautiful dough. Now I will every so often, as you just saw, I like to move the dough. And that's because it helps you make sure you're not sticking anywhere. If you are, you can pick it up, check underneath, kind of like a pie dough. So you can kind of just keep rolling it out until you get a nice big circle, square. Don't get too caught up on the shape here. But more is that you want it to be even, so your cookies bake evenly and look even. So once we get it rolled out, we'll start cutting, we'll be baking. It'll just be a good time. So I have it rolled out, somewhat even, and now I am just putting these on a parchment lined baking sheet. This is kind of the simple part and the fun part. So if you have kids that want to help, come in and let them. You could do any shape. These don't hold every shape. They're a softer cookie, but to me they hold round always obviously really well, and they do a scalloped edge pretty well. So I'm gonna fill this tray up. I'm gonna pop them in the oven. We're gonna have great cookies, and then while they're cooling, we're gonna make a frosting, because you need a frosting on them. So I'll finish these up, pop them in. Guys, this is, I don't know, even if you're not into Valentine's Day, just make a cookie. You're still gonna enjoy a cookie. I just pulled the last sheet out of the oven, and you can see, look how beautiful they are. They don't get too much color on top, but underneath, they get just a little bit of that golden. So after they sit on a pan for a few minutes out of the oven, because things finish baking once they're out of the oven, there's still a lot of residual heat, I pull them onto a rack just so they can fully bake. Now, if you wanna know what I meant by fully mixing something, because it shows if it's uneven, let me find one here. This had probably a little bit that I didn't fully mix in, and you see how it looks completely different, the texture? You don't want this. That means I had a little bit in the bottom of the mixer that wasn't perfect. Learn from my mistakes. So since these are mostly cool and those are cooling, we're gonna make a frosting, because I think a frosting on them is delicious. So to start, we have butter. Who would have thought? It's room temperature. We're gonna put it right in the mixer. We're gonna add, I sift my powdered sugar, and I just did it onto a piece of parchment. It was actually one of the pieces I used when I was baking because it still looked clean. And then I just take it up and can dump it right in the mixer. It just makes it easier. When you sift it, it sounds like an annoying step, but there really are lumps in it, and you don't want lumps in the final product. So we'll start with a little bit of cream, and we can always add more if we need to. That's just gonna help smooth it out. You don't wanna add too much because you can always add more. A little bit of vanilla flavor, you want the flavor. And again, it's a liquid too, so it actually will make a difference on how it mixes. So I'm gonna start this on low and then turn it up. So you can see you just want it to get smooth and creamy. I did scrape it down once already, but you wanna make sure everything is mixed evenly because it's a frosting, so you don't want clumps of anything. But when it gets down to this stage, which look at that beautiful frosting, I like to kind of clean it all off, make sure we're getting it clean, and then add, so I'm making these for Valentine's Day. You don't have to be. You can make them for any day. You could put green in, make them for St. Patty's. You could put no color in and just frost them and be delicious. But I'm gonna add a little bit of pink just to give them some festive holiday kind of cheer. Not that it's like a holiday, but you know what I mean. And it's a gel one is what I use, so it kind of sometimes you have to feel it in there and it wants to come out. Oh, there we go, a little bit of gel right there. We're gonna start small. You never know for sure how much you need. And then we'll just mix this in and see a little bit more there, how much we really need. So once it's in there, you can see it just becomes a really pretty frosting. And you can do any color you want. You could go deep red, you could go any of them, but I'm going more of a nice blushed pink. Isn't that pretty? I do think it kind of makes it more, should we say appetizing, especially if it's seasonal. I don't know, Valentine's Day is one of those I don't really care about, but if I have nieces or nephews close by or something like that, or if you're going to somewhere, it's just fun to take something that feels a little festive, because in the middle of winter, we don't get a lot of festive in Iowa. So it's fun to have something. I know my one grandma, she used to always make us a little bag of candy or a cookie or something. So it's just kind of fun. So what you can do now is just frost however you feel comfortable. You could pipe it. I don't really want to. This is really just more of an American style frosting, kind of an American buttercream with the butter and the powdered sugar. And I do the final mix here just to make sure all the color is evenly mixed. I like to use a small cookie scoop, very small. Take the frosting in little doses because it just helps me get it on there kind of more correctly. See, you get a little bit. And then you can just take your offset spatula and just spread it out. I don't know, I find this to be easy because then you get kind of like a nice portion on each cookie and it works better. But you know what? If you guys have something you like to do, you can do that. The thing is, these are rustic because guess what? I'm not a pastry chef. I'm just a home cook that wants to like have fun. So once this is on there, you can do whatever you want. I have some hearts that are sugar hearts, so they're edible. You could do fun sprinkles and you could kind of just like sprinkle half of it if you wanted to. Look at, okay, that's just fun. Like I'm feeling, okay. Never liked Valentine's before, but look at it now. It's just fun. You can do whatever you want. So I'm gonna start frosting some, do them in different things, the sprinkles and the sugar hearts, and just have fun. This is where it comes together and you can just enjoy it. So if you have kids, neighbors, I don't know, just do it together. You can see I'm just having fun with it. There's really no right or wrong. These big fun sprinkles that everyone has now, I think are just kind of, I don't know, they're fun to play with. I don't know, look at them. They're just really, you can put these big sprinkle pieces on them if you don't drop them all over the floor. But look at that, they just make a big impact. And I think that's kind of the fun part of them. Anyway, once you're done, to your heart's desire, you can do whatever you want. You then can just enjoy them, and that's the best part. So you have this big lofty cookie with the frosting on it. It's soft, it's melting in your mouth, but I better double check to make sure. Look at this. It's beautiful texture, and it really does. It just melts away in your mouth. And what I like is, the frosting is obviously sweet, but then the cookie balances it out. So you get that hit of sweet frosting, you get that cakey cookie that's soft and melts in your mouth, and then it just goes together in this nice buttery, sweet vanilla flavor. It's delicious. And if I'm gonna do something for Valentine's, it's gonna be eating all these cookies. That's what you should do too. So what do I hope you do with this? I hope you share this around so everyone can see you can make cookies for a holiday or not and just enjoy them and have fun with it. That's the best part. It's sharing food around, it's enjoying, it's bringing people together. That's the point of food. So share it, check my website, wiseguy.com for this recipe and all of my other recipes. They're all on there. And until next time, have some fun, enjoy it, go over the top with sprinkles. You only live once.